Hey there, the Westlaw Pirates, and welcome to the show. We're here to share our thoughts on Northwestern athletics and college sports, with thoughts and analysis from the visceral to the statistical. We run our tailgate with the red pirate flag flying high above, as we give no quarter, especially the fourth. I'm Sam Walter.
I am John Lacombe.
And I'm Eric Skoskousbo.
Well, I think tonight is, we all saw the game this past weekend.
We sure did.
I believe, and I've spoken offline with a number of people, and I think tonight is going to be kind of a big group therapy session. To start that off, let's start off with some warm fuzzies. John, take us to Field Hockey Corner, please.
Yeah, I think it's better for my own sanity if I frame this pod as a field hockey pod during which we will rant about the football team. That seems like a better way to talk about this. So let's talk field hockey right off the top here. So this was a huge weekend for the field hockey team. So we talked last week about how this was going to be a huge weekend, a huge trip to the oven mitt to play Michigan and Michigan State. Michigan was, I think, what would we say? They were 12th in the RPI. I think as high as 7 in some polls. And it was going to be a huge road match for this team that has done nothing but take care of business. And it was exciting, dramatic, fantastic. So Chloe Relford put Northwestern up 1-0 in the third quarter, but then Michigan equalized, and this one went to overtime, and like high overtime drama for this field hockey team is nothing new. And then to win a back-to-back Big Ten championship, just an absolute gorgeous goal. Maddie Zimmer makes this unbelievable run down the right side, basically clears it out, generates a shot. Friend of the pod, Lauren Wattis, collects the rebound and puts it in the back of the net for a sudden death win. That clinches the Big Ten for Northwestern. Fantastic. I mean, for us, we were so stoked, as you all know. Lauren, who is just amazing, was on the pod at the beginning of the season to kind of give us a preview and kick the season off. She is one of the leaders of this team. Like, we've had the opportunity to meet her and her family. It was just awesome seeing her get such a huge goal for this team. And that kind of having clinched that, the Cats are kind of between worlds right now, and yet in pursuit of something that almost no Northwestern team has ever pulled off. So the starting point is Northwestern, first of all, on Sunday, played Michigan State on the back half of this. This was the stats will tell you, this was a 5-0 result, and it was tied at the half, and it took a little to get this unstuck. If you go deeper into the stats, this was like somehow Michigan State withstood, at least for a little while, a barrage. We outshot them 43-4 in this one. 43-4. Like, absolutely peppered the goal until they finally started going in. So, again, now Northwestern is comfortably clinched a Big Ten regular season title. Obviously, we know that in the future looms the entire postseason, starting with the Big Ten tournament, then the national tournament, and theoretically, I think we all think the North Carolina Tar Heels somewhere out in the ether waiting for us, potentially in the national title game if things unfold that way. But in the meantime, Northwestern, and this is all of you, like, highlight this, underline it, get out to Lakeside Field next Friday, the 1st, to watch them play against Ohio State. They're going for an undefeated regular season. By our calculation, the only team to have pulled this feat off is the lacrosse team, who have done it 3 times. 2 of those times they won national titles and had undefeated seasons. They're the only team to have done it. We all know the times when, the Rose Bowl season, as close as football ever got to flirting with it, right? As amazing as conference season runs for like softball have been, certainly there was never an undefeated regular season in the cards, right? Certainly not for basketball. Field hockey is staring this in the face. As far as we can tell, they're only the fourth team in any Northwestern sport to potentially be able to pull this off. So it's a huge deal, and it underscores just how good this field hockey team is. So they will be out on the lake 3 p.m. on Friday. It will be on BTN, again, as they go for an undefeated regular season, but if you can get to the game, get to the game. Day after Halloween, I'm sure the students will be out. I'm sure there will be a lot of great costumes featured, etc. So, again, it's just one more thing. It's one more unprecedented accolade that this team that has already in the middle of the best regular season that a Northwestern field hockey team has ever had has clinched back-to-back Big Ten championships for the first time since the 80s. They are now trying to do one more thing. They're trying to go one more place that no other field hockey team has gone, and that's an undefeated regular season. So get out and if you can make it, get out there to the lake on November 1st and watch them.
Well, and something, this is a nice little transition. We picked up a pair of season tickets for Northwestern basketball this fall, or this winter, this season. And the three of us are not going to be able to use them for every game. So we're going to do a couple things just to entice and incentivize some things here with the tickets. So we're going to do a ticket giveaway. And I don't know exactly which game yet, but basically, the non-conference, and we'll do a couple other things as we get into Big Ten season and a couple of Big Ten games. But we're gonna give away our 2 tickets for the first couple non-conference games here. And what we would love to see is if you're interested in those tickets and going to whether it's the game against Lehigh on November 4th, UIC on November 12th, Eastern Illinois on November 15th. I realize these aren't hot opponents, but NU Hoops, you get to see the boys back on the court.
And the tickets are free.
So all you need to do is take a picture of yourself at said field hockey game on November 1st. So you try to get the scoreboard in the background, as no AI, please, but as like proof of life, catch that scoreboard in the background. Send it to us, DM us at Westlot Pirates on Twitter, Gmail, westlotpirates@gmail.com.
Tag us in a tweet. Put up the photo.
Yeah,
online.
Tag us in a tweet, and we will do a little mini drawing of those who submit their photo in this manner. So shout at us if you have any questions. But this is the sort of thing, like, I think we feel privileged to have these kind of teams and be connected to some of these programs, and to be able to help encourage attendance and engagement and support for some of the non heavily covered sports is a big deal for us, because they're such a critical part of the culture at Northwestern and the sports legacy of our school, and we want to support them best we can. So again, take your picture at the field hockey game on the 1st, DM it to us, tag us, email it to us, whatever, and we'll get you to a little mini drawing for a pair of our basketball season tickets.
Well,
super awesome.
Okay,
good. So we're done.
Cool.
All right. You're Sam Walter.
I am. Like, 2 weeks in a row now. It's just a rough watch.
This. You said the exact words that are what I think has all of us so frustrated. I mean, anybody who listened to the Wisconsin podcast, I talked about how the conference was drunk. Northwestern has had this up and down situation this year. Sometimes, they come out guns blazing. Sometimes they come out really struggling to execute. But to see it 2 weeks in a row and to see very little change in approach.
Very little.
I don't know what went on behind closed doors, but it certainly appeared that there was little to no change from the prior week, and it stings the nostrils, and it does make you start to feel like this team has lost its fastball this season, and its curve, and its sinker, and its changeup, and we're headed to some real rough sledding.
I'm hot right now. I mean, I'm pissed, and I think for all the people, and we've talked about this, and we're aware of people who are like, you guys are rah rah rah, you guys are Pollyannish or whatever. Well, for better or worse or whatever, you're getting hot, John, tonight. I am it's for everything that Scuzz said. I mean, I'm like, the starting point for me, everything we talked about in the Wisconsin pod, which wasn't just clear to us, these were things that were clear to everybody. As far as I can tell, an hour after that Wisconsin game ended, the game tape burned in a fire, because it is staggering. It's there. I mean, the short of it is, Braun and Lujan have appeared to be underwater the past 2 weeks, and to an extent that is shocking, and I don't think any of us saw coming. It was bracing and biting when it happened against Wisconsin, and not a lot of fun, and pissed a lot of people off, and we went through all that last week. But this is something different, and this was my personal crossing of the Rubicon, and I think it was for a bunch of other people too, because we just ran back a ton of the exact same mistakes. And when I say exact same mistakes, after the much maligned decision to trot out Luke Akers for that 52-yard field goal to start the Wisconsin game, we literally come out and do the exact same thing again with a 50-yard field goal against Iowa
on a 4th and 2, I believe.
4th and 2,
on
yeah.
a 4th and 2 in Kinnick, no less.
Yeah,
right.
When we've been actually moving the ball, okay.
I know.
We've been getting like a yard,
and
put getting a couple yards here and there.
Put a pin in that, because I'm going to be living in that town in a little while. But as Harris Horowitz, I think on Inside NU said, there's not a person in the stadium who thought he was making that kick, and that's true. That's certainly how we all felt at Beer Miscuous. We were like, what are we doing? Are we really going to do this 2 weeks in a row?
Well, let's not put just to be clear, you're not putting that on Luke Akers. It's a 52-yard field goal in Kinnick.
These are 2 kicks beginning with the number 5, right? And it's not like, as people have pointed out, and we've had discussions behind the scenes with various folks, etc. It's like special teams, like we just barely had one blocked, right? Like special teams protection has not been an area of strength recently. So that's something you have to factor into, right? And the need to this offense, which hasn't found the end zone, right? I mean, it's like points are so at a premium. And again, we'll get to that piece too. That's just one. But that it was literally the identical situation, the identical mistake in the identical situation. And then we take, and I'm going to circle back to this specific area, but we took a safety in the exact same position, almost the exact same type of play. It was like instant replay. And then you look at the 3 most maligned plays from the Wisconsin game. We replicate 2 of them, almost note for note. And the third one we don't replicate, but we effectively do the inverse. Instead of calling a really ridiculously risky play from our own 5-yard line, with 33 seconds left from our own 35 and 1 timeout, we just kneel and end the half. And it just let everyone being like, what is the rhyme or reason here? When do we do it? When don't we do it?
Well, and I mean, a drive that started at the 25, so not inside the 5-yard line. And the first play was like an 11-yard run. And then they just stood there and let the clock run down.
Right.
And
yeah, I mean, you always hear, you take the first play and you see if anything happens. And if it does, then you go for it. But if it doesn't, okay, you take a knee. But you get a nice chunk on first down. You moved it up a little bit.
And you have everyone being like, what the hell's the protocol here? What's the situation? There doesn't seem to be any logic to it whatsoever.
They just seem to have really lost their way. And I want to call out, I don't think we talked about it much on last week's pod, if at all, but Louis Vicaire wrote a great article where he highlighted the inexperience and the youth. This is obviously Braun's first head coaching gig. It's Lujan's first time in FBS, which people are making a lot of, and I'm sorry, there are so many other examples of FCS coaches coming up and being quite successful. I mean, frankly, you could just go look at Indiana.
Scuzz, I feel like at this point we have identified a bunch of red flags relative to Lujan that we ought have identified more clearly earlier. The jump to FBS ain't one of them.
Yeah, no, that's not the problem.
Yeah,
but the specific thing that Louis called out that I thought makes a ton of sense is Skip Holtz was a member of this coaching staff last year. in an advisory / executive role. He was not an on-field coach. He was basically helping Braun run the day-to-day of the program because of, certainly the nature of when he, got named interim coach and everything else. Like he needed help administering, and I'm certain Skip was giving tons of advice across a lot of different things. And now, fast forward, Skip's gone back to the USFL, and I still love the type of honesty and that we're getting from Braun. Like the defense has been generally really good this year. I don't think this guy is, out of his depth or off his rocker, but he's having a bad year. And these last 2 weeks have shown some real questionable decision-making that seems to have just swirled into indecision and a lack of confidence in making the right decision. And John, you said there's like what are we making decisions based on right now? Because just go get some sophomore from campus who plays, Madden 20 hours a week, and they can help make better decisions with clock management, et cetera. So the staff just seems to have to me, it feels like they've lost their way. They're just in a spot where they don't have the confidence to make these decisions effectively, play in and play out. And that inexperience is a big piece of it. And sure, there are some people that are going to say like, well, it's because they're crappy coaches. And like, I will remind you that David Braun pulled this team out of a death trap last year and went to a bowl game and won it. So we're not even a year removed from that experience. So I'm sorry if I'm not willing to like toss the guy out as FCS garbage yet, because it just doesn't kind of track. But the inexperience and the up and downs of a coach who's learning on the job, yeah, that's totally fair and legit, and we seem to be experiencing the worst of it right now.
I hate to bring up this comparison, but remember Fitz's first couple of years.
Yeah,
he also got the job under tough circumstances, right?
Yep.
And that first year, they outperformed, and the second year, not as much.
Everything
first game, a really uninspiring victory over Miami of Ohio.
Everything you're saying is true, 100%. I totally agree. You've caught me on the wrong week to get up and to get up on in the firing line for Braun and Lujan, and I'm still just hot because like you were saying, you're right. Like you could be missing Holtz. It could be an experience thing, but there were all of these massive problems in Wisconsin, and to see them all replicated. And that's the thing. Like we talked about,
John. I guess that's my point: is that a experienced coach, a more seasoned coach, a more confident coach who is.
May these be the horrific growing pains from which great wisdom emerges.
I want to stop using the word confident, because it's not the word I want to use. It's comfortable is maybe the better word. A coach that's more comfortable in his skin and in his role, saying, you know what, we did the wrong thing, and we're going to adjust, and we're going to shift, and we're going to go a different direction. And like he did that in the beginning of the year, changing QBs, and it worked for a week, and then it's been real up and down ever since. And they just seem to have been like they're digging their hole deeper and deeper and deeper, and anything they try to do seems to not work. And then I'm with you, John. I'm really pissed that they didn't seem to try anything different this past week. It was like, well, let's run it back and see if it gets any better, and it was abjectly worse.
And here I want to delineate between Braun and Lujan. Because when we talk about the field goal situations, that's Braun. That's the head coach is making that call. I very much believe, and this is, again, it's my personal belief, and I don't have any intel or anything to back this up. I very much believe that Braun is trying to step up and take as much of the weight for Lujan as he can right now. And I think that's something that any head coach does. I think that's something that you're trying to do. You never want to let your coordinators take the brunt of it, etc. Obviously, he gave a full-throated endorsement of Lujan at the press conference today. But in the past, he has sort of referenced, I have to make a call here, where I'm listening and I'm being like, that's not the offensive coordinator's position. Like, a field goal, okay. But I'm like, if you're not trusting your OC to make the call in this situation, and I think, like, this is the thing, because like we're saying, if it was just about these play calls, that would be, I mean, the ones that we've highlighted so far, that would be one thing. And maybe I wouldn't be totally blowing my top right now. But the vast majority, we drummed home in last week's pod because it just screamed on the film. And they have to have seen the exact same thing, and Lord knows we weren't the only people to see it. The one takeaway, if there was only one takeaway from the Wisconsin game, it was, for the love of God, you have to get Jack Loush to run the football. It's where all of the offense was coming from when there wasn't any other offense. Wisconsin had a poor game plan for it to deal with his scrambling ability, which was about the only thing we had going for us. And at the same time, there was just this maddening over and over and over again. Loush is not keeping the ball on read option. It's got to get unlocked if he's going to do that, etc. That was a Jack Loush problem last week. That's a coaching problem now. You don't get another mulligan on that. You had a whole week to go back and drum this into him and be like, here's the point of emphasis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you need to be doing this. Here's the film. Here's how to do it. This brings me to, so as you all know, we go back and watch the game tape, and sometimes it is a siege. But this week, there was a grotesque beauty in terms of watching the absolute train wreck that was our play calling in the second quarter of this game and how it unfolded. And when I went back and watched it, it was like, I was like, this is unbelievable. It's the whole wheel of cheese. Like, chef's kiss. I can't believe. And I just want to take everyone through it so you can see just how kind of cinematically awful this is and how it unfolds. So at the start of the second quarter, if you don't remember, the second quarter begins with a sideline interview with Braun. So they interview Braun, and what Braun says is, we saw some good things on the first drive. We got to continue to trust our run game, and the pass game will come after that. The full context for Braun saying that is, on the opening drive, and Scuds, you alluded to this earlier, finally, out of the blue, Loush keeps one on a read option. Something he didn't do for all of the Wisconsin game. He does it on the opening drive of the Iowa game and gets 14 yards. Catches Iowa flat-footed. And then he doesn't do it again for the rest of the first quarter as the offense stagnates and sputters. So remember with Braun, and this is why I wanted to draw the line between Braun and Lujan. Braun's a defensive guy. Braun's not calling plays. Braun's not involved with the inner workings of the offense. Braun is trusting that to Lujan. So when I hear Braun's quote on that sideline interview, what I'm hearing is, look, I'm not in charge of the offensive scheme. I'm helping handle this defense that has been keeping us in games for this entire season. All I know is, from the one thing coming out of the Wisconsin game was, we needed a more dynamic read option where the quarterback was keeping the ball half the time. And I saw that on the first drive of the game, and I ain't seen it since, so I'm hoping we see it now. And that's the context for how the second quarter starts. First play, handoff to Porter, 2 yards. That's notable because it's one of the only regular handoffs that we ran, because we run so much read option out of shotgun. Second play of the second quarter, it's a quick pass to C.J. Johnson. Great play. Short pass over the middle, catches CJ 7 yards. Exactly the kind of play I wish we were to run a bunch more in this game. Third down, read option to Cam. Jack could have kept it here, just like he could have kept it all the Wisconsin game, just like he could have kept it the whole first quarter of the Iowa game. But we only need 1 yard, so whatever. It's to Cam. Cam gets 2 yards, first down. Fourth play, we run a deep drop pass, where it's the kind of play that looked like a mess in the Wisconsin game. It's a deep drop. You have 3 deep routes. The play falls apart almost immediately. But because Jack Loush is so good at getting out of pressure, he gets out of the 4-man rush pressure. And because Iowa's so scared about Jack Lausch running, the linebackers cheat as soon as they see him evade the pressure. He finds Cam Porter 6 yards. The next play is a horrific RPO to the left against the grain that gives Jack the option to throw across his body back over the middle of the field. Interception. In addition to the fact that if this would have just been a regular option and he would have just kept the ball, it was wide open, as it was so many times against Iowa. Instead, he's running, looking to throw where lanes aren't there and feeling like he's supposed to make a play in the air, and he throws it back over the middle. That play had no business being run. Notable about that, the next offensive play we run, safety. And as we've discussed, it's a safety that was a repeat of the exact same play we ran against Wisconsin. So keep in mind, they don't seem to be able to get him to keep the ball and run it. But they're going to be able to get him to drop deep into the end zone and then get the ball out on a read, and it won't have the exact same result as it did the week before. Now, the next time we get the ball back, Iowa at this point is just sitting on everything. They're like either he's throwing or he's giving it to the back. There's no third option. First down, read option to Joseph Hyman. They obliterate it. 4-yard loss. At this point, the color commentator, no doubt just as horrified and flummoxed as we are, says, and I quote, Jack Lausch is one of Northwestern's best ball carriers, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a handoff to the running back to allow the run game to be accentuated. They're trying to will him to keep the football. Next play, read option, totally there. He gives it to Hyman. Short gain.
If he kept it, it's a 15-yard gain.
It's a 15-yard gain.
The left side of our offensive line blows Iowa off the ball.
Right.
And Iowa is flooding to the running
They're
back.
just cheating.
They watch the Wisconsin tape. They're doing the exact same thing, and that's where this gets. This is extraordinarily frustrating, right? And John, I think what you said earlier is spot on. Last week it was a Lausch problem. This week it's a coaching problem because you didn't fix it.
100%.
And then I'll go back to the beginning of the year when we looked at the personnel on this team on paper, and we were like, holy shit. Mike Wright and Jack Lausch, Cam Porter, Hyman and Komalafe at running back, Henning and C.J. Johnson and Frank Covey, like
Kurtz. Well, Kurtz was never
Kurtz, but I mean, but like there's a ton of speed on this team,
right?
And based on there are targets at the wide receiver position, but we expected this to be a running team, and they haven't been.
Oh well, and then the other thing too, and so circle back to the offensive line piece of this in a second. But so you've got it. The announcers literally have just practically implored through the TV for Jack Lausch to keep the football, right? And like you said, that next one, it's totally there. Instead, he gives it to the back. Then it's third down. It's open again. He gives it to the back again, and then we punt. We get the ball back the next time. Iowa is all over this. It's a give to Porter. Iowa just crushes it. It's another read option. Now the announcers mention the horror show at the end of the first half of the Wisconsin game, and I had the morbid thought, I'm like, well, I'm glad someone remembers the Wisconsin game. And then, next play, guess what? You'll never guess. Read option, it's a give to Porter. He gets destroyed. Next play, give to Porter again, and then we punt. And then Iowa scores a touchdown, and then we get the ball back. And for some inexplicable reason, just like it happened with a couple of Joseph Hyman plays against Wisconsin, Iowa just has a brain fart, like a broken watch is right twice a day kind of situation, and they sit on Lausch on a read option. So Porter has a big gain, and we get a first down, and then we kneel with 33 seconds and one timeout. It was broken. And I'll tell you, this quarter, crushed the defense. That's the kind of effect that this kind of ridiculous futility has, because the defense was trying, man. The corners, I mean, lest we forget, Fussell was robbed of a pick.
Theron Johnson had an 85-yard pick six. I mean,
Theron had his 85-yard pick six, continues to be one of the Big Ten's best quarters. We tweeted out about how much Story and Pearson were dominating in the interior earlier in this game. They just had the will sucked out of them. It's like,
they got gassed. I mean, it's 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Your defense is going to get gassed.
Right. This is where I do have to point out that there was a unsportsmanlike penalty after that pick return that basically put Northwestern inside the 5-yard line on offense for the next 3 series until they gave up the safety. That was like falls into the.
You're totally right.
We keep screwing up and not executing and playing sloppy in other parts of the game, which are problematic.
I know, and it's like you're totally right. I have this instinctive thing to be like, Theron is like one of the only.
No, I like look,
and I'm totally. But you're
the
totally
emotion
right.
of the moment. People make mistakes. I'm not coming down on Theron. I'm not and it does not excuse the stupid and short-sighted and no memory of last week against Wisconsin play calling that happened in the subsequent situations. But I felt like after that, I Northwestern's defense basically forced a 3 and out from Iowa on 3 consecutive series. Right. And Northwestern's offense could do nothing because they were inside the 5-yard line, and that kind of stems from that personal foul.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But at the same, it's just, you watch the way that the entire play calling played out from the second quarter, and then the way the third quarter started, and just basically you just felt the air go out of the place. Yeah. It was just obviously that horror show of offensive points that Iowa put up in the third quarter. That doesn't just come out of nowhere, right? These guys are doing everything they can, but as Sam pointed out, you're going to get the physical exhaustion, and then you're going to get the emotional exhaustion too from being like, what more can we do, right?
And in the first half, they shut Caleb Johnson down.
Right.
Caleb Johnson was doing nothing.
Yeah, right.
Until he breaks that 26-yard touchdown run with 39 seconds left in the half, and then the floodgates open.
Right. And if that ain't the perfect carbon, what's the word that I'm looking for? The perfect image, right, of the exact kind of guy who's going to punish a team that's starting to lose its will. I mean, that guy's a battering ram. And that's the thing. But right, to your point, that was later. They did such a good job on him earlier in the game. But again, taking it back to the essence of why I'm so mad is this thing that we are talking about. And this is what Scuzz said, referring to last week it's a Lausch problem. This week it's a coach's problem. I am really not trying to put this on Lausch, okay? This is a problem he has. But I want to be crystal clear, okay? We are not talking about Bill Walsh football here. We're not talking about read progressions and complex stuff. This is literally keeping the football. And it's a situation where you're like, what's the big mystery? What's the big solution? You grab your quarterback on the sideline and you say, next series, we're running read option, and I don't care what look they show you, you're keeping the ball, because otherwise none of this works, right? There's no magic solution. It's so ridiculous. It had me thinking of as parents, we're all parents of young kids, and a lot of you probably are too. And every group of parents is familiar with that one parent in the friend group who's like, well, we really would like to limit the screen time, but, he really loves that iPad, and I just don't know what to do. What do you mean you don't know what to do? Take the iPad away. That's what it is. And again, that's not to throw shade at Lausch. It's just to say, just seize the bull by the horns and be like, run the ball. You ran it once in the first half. Come hell or high water, you're running it way more in the second half, because otherwise the whole system we're trying to run doesn't work. And clearly they didn't do that because you didn't run the ball one time in the second half of this football game. And again, it's just maddening stuff. It's
the piece that because of course none of us know what's happening on the sidelines. We don't know who's saying what to whom. We don't know what is getting called down from the booth. All that jazz, right? We have no idea. But given everything that has been observed in the last game and a half, at halftime of that game, how do you not consider putting Mike Wright out there?
Yeah.
Or maybe maybe a better way to put it was, were you guys surprised we didn't see Mike Wright?
Well, so here's the thing, right? I mean, again, there have been a lot of people talking about this, and it's like, well, if you're going to run read option on every one of our running plays, and your quarterback's never going to keep the ball, literally ever, on those read option plays, right? And you don't seem to have the secret sauce required to just make him keep the football, then maybe you should go to the guy who's going to be more willing to do that. It seems preposterous to me that you wouldn't be able to find a solution to the Jack Louse piece of this problem. But if you can't, then yeah, Wright will probably run it. Maybe you should put him in. But again, it's like the whole thing is just so frustrating. And I think you touched on it briefly, Scuzz, earlier maybe. But the one thing that I wanted to mention is the offensive line's catching a ton of heat from Twitter and various people being like, this is, the offensive line, and look, like they can't even move the ball or whatever. Just, you understand that this offensive line, which has fought through a ton of injury issues, has allowed Cam Porter to grind out 100 yards at 3.6 yards a carry over the past 2 games in a situation where literally every time we run read option, every defender just crashes into the box because they know he's getting the football. Like, there's a limit to how much success you can have when things are running like this. They're doing what they can. I agree. It could be better. It would be great if injuries had not decimated the interior of this line. But given all of that, we've got guys out there who are moving bodies and doing what they can. But they, like everyone else, is kneecapped by what is going on from this play calling and execution situation right now. And again, I'll cede the floor here. I'm just pissed. It's a rant kind of week.
And I don't even really want to get into the Brendan Sullivan of it all, because
no,
we're just not even going there.
That's painful.
I will say one thing about that. It was turning the screws to have Mr. All I want to do is run.
Yeah.
On operating the other offense at the time when all of this was going on. And this is not to throw shade. Again, those Maryland games, his performances, the grit of the man in a Northwestern uniform will always live. Iowa fans sure are in the honeymoon phase with Brendan Sullivan right now. And good on you. He certainly got you a win against Northwestern.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, we talked both sides of the ball here, and like special teams was, we gave up an 85-yard punt return. We got a 72-yard punt return. Drew Wagner, walk on wide receiver. Fourth quarter gets big punt return.
I wish so much for Drew that this would have happened even earlier in this game, so that there would have been a bigger celebration from Northwestern Nation about it. Because I confess, like at Northwestern, at Beer Miscuous, where we were all, a bunch of us were watching the game, the air had so gone out of the room by the time that this happened that it just barely moved the needle. And that's sad, because that's a huge moment for a guy who hopefully will have a really promising Northwestern career and a walk-on, right? He's like, this guy's a walk-on, and now he's returning a punt for a touchdown in Kinnick. It's fantastic. Great for him. And hopefully, the start of like an amazing career. I just wish that it could have been something that was celebrated more in the moment. Kind of reminds me, here's a little pull, but Venrick Mark's kickoff return in Camp Randall.
Oh, yeah.
When we otherwise lost.
70-7?
70-7, but the 7 sure was great. That was a great kickoff return. Congrats to Drew Stevens. And again, congrats to Theron again. A huge play for a guy who has been so good.
Yeah, he's been excellent.
Really evolved, and we made the Therizard. We're calling him Therizard now because he truly has evolved. Like he's gone to a higher level and become one of the Big Ten's elite cornerbacks, and that's great. The one other thing Well, go ahead. I don't know if anyone else has something they want to say about this
No,
game.
I mean, like, I don't really know that there's much else to say. So
yeah,
if
I
you
don't
just
think there
want to
is.
close the door on it, and
Yeah.
we can start to look ahead.
Yeah, so in an interest of a pivot, and this goes to something, Scuzz, that you talked about earlier. I think like right off the top. Or maybe we didn't, and maybe this is the time to have the discussion, but the talking about expectations, right? And that a lot of people have been coming back to in the wake of this game, kind of some form of, well, like this was certainly on the table at the start of the year, and as you pointed out, Scuzz, like we in our season prediction said that the range between positives and negatives for this team was absolutely titanic. And we put the floor. Where do we put the floor? Was it like two, three?
Two or three wins, and
Yeah.
Well,
So-
and it's not. I think I didn't allude to it earlier on the pod. We talked about beforehand. We actually were talking about during the day today a little bit as well as we were preparing. But I think there's a distinction between coming into the season and understanding that the outcomes in college football can swing pretty wildly, and I don't say this is an excuse. It's just fact. That's just fact. But there is a growing well, of course it was going to go this way kind of point of view that's coming through the fan base. And that's not, I mean, remember what we all thought coming in August. We're getting a guy who was a proven and decent quarterback at Vanderbilt coming in to be a senior QB. Dude looks cool as a cucumber in game 1 and then kind of comes unglued in game 2. We've got the guy that has coached one of the best offenses in FCS the last 2 years. And again, if you don't think FCS coaches can cut it at the FBS level, just go look at Indiana. Go look at Kansas State. There's so many examples. It's just a stupid thing to say. It's not accurate.
Well, especially since like if you want to try to pick fruit from that tree, you basically have the fact that he had like 2 enormous NFL running backs and an offensive line that at least relative to its competition probably enjoyed a lot of superiority, and an FCS Player of the Year at quarterback.
I think it is fair to say that Lujan has never been in this exact kind of situation, and that's
right.
But to say that he, anyways, regardless, like at the beginning of the season, by week 3, we were in a different place, and I think. This is no shade to Jack Lausch, but dude had never started a college football game before. Dude had never played a quarter of a college football game before. And so much of my optimism about this offense was based on what we saw Mike Wright do on a college football field in the SEC.
Yeah.
For 3 years.
Yeah. And
so, and I'm not saying this to cover my ass, or suggest that we were right, and of course, we said the floor was 2. Yet what we said was there's depth concerns on the O-line, and there's a lot of questions at quarterback because coming off of last year, it was the question everybody had: who's going to play QB? And then Brendan Sullivan transfers, and it's even more the question of who's going to play QB, and. All the you said earlier, Jack Lausch is doing his damnedest out there, and the game's moving too fast for him. He's holding the ball too long. He's uncomfortable running for whatever reason. Maybe the coach. At one point I saw a quote from Braun that said that they want him to stay in the pocket more. Everybody is.
I refer you to the underwater piece again. Yeah.
Exactly. Everybody's a bit twisted up right now, and that is an extraordinarily different place, 180-degree different place from where the handful of variables that had us excited about the potential of this team at the beginning of the year.
Here's 100% agree. I agree with everything you said. I don't know if I would call this a counterpoint, but here's the other piece. We totally right. We said that the floor could be 2 or 3 games. But if you would have shown me in the summer how unbelievably mid this conference would be this season, I would have immediately adjusted my prediction up. I would have been in this conference, this pile of mediocrity, we're winning minimum 5 or 6 games. That's what I would have said. And in an interest of kind of pivoting towards like where we're headed here, kind of to back up what I'm saying here, Northwestern has blown any chance to win, and in the closing minutes, a very good chance to win against Duke. Like, blown any chance to win 4 very mediocre football teams in Duke, Washington, Wisconsin, and Iowa. These are not good football teams. They have good elements to them, but for example, Duke, whose overall record continues to be an entire mirage, they are one of the only teams in the country that is in the same range of third down conversion awfulness that Northwestern currently is. We are second worst out of 134 teams in that category right now. Duke's only like 3 or 4 spots above that, okay? They are a team with major problems, right? Washington's 4-4. We know what we know what Iowa is. We know what Wisconsin is. And despite blowing chances to win, really, or be in all 4 of those games against those 4 mid teams, if we beat this historically awful Purdue football team, we're basically going to be in bowl contention all the way until the end of the season. Because lest anyone forget, if we win 5 games, we're at the front of the line for APR. And as many mediocre teams as we've already played, we still play a horrible Purdue team, an unbelievably mediocre Michigan team, and then whatever Illinois is to end the season. So despite everything that's already happened, if we just can get past Purdue, we'll be in contention for a bowl all the way through our last game of the season. So if you would have told me that's what the Big Ten was going to be like this year, I would have been like, we're, great. Let's go get it, right? And that's, again, what makes this futility sting. But you're right. Like, on the flip side, like, we didn't know exactly how these problems were going to play out. We didn't know that, that the offensive problems were going to be this disastrous, etc. So, but again, despite all of this, we're just a flat better football team than Purdue is. And I am not saying that we can't lose this game, because, whoa, Nelly, we can find a way to lose a football game. But Purdue's, they're awful. They're horrible. They're one of the worst teams.
After the last 2 games, after Wisconsin and Iowa, we are a 1.5 point favorite on the road.
Right.
Are we really?
We are.
Oh, Lord Almighty.
I'm not surprised. Like, Purdue, again, Purdue's defense is, and we put it on Twitter, it's the 130th best defense in the country. This game is just a sickos committee special. It is the 132nd ranked total offense versus the 130th ranked total defense. But Purdue's offense is also horrifically bad. They have one half of football where they were incandescent. The second half of the Illinois game where they scored 49 points. They have 44 points combined in every other FBS football game this year. Our defense exists on a different plane than every other unit playing in this football game on Saturday. And so
I'm going to quibble with that in one very specific way.
Go ahead.
And that is that Ryan Brown
can run and poses more of a threat a la Brendan Sullivan than anything Purdue had out on the field, the first quarter of the season. And we played Brown last year, and he did okay against us, but obviously we beat Purdue pretty handily. But without Xander Mueller, and again with this coaching staff kind of reeling,
we don't know if we're getting Xander back.
No, he said he's not going to play.
He said he's not. Okay.
Yeah, Braun basically said in his press conference he's not going to play. So we're hoping to get him back, but we don't think we're going to have him this weekend. And that gives me, given what we saw, which the air went out of that team. You could see the shoulders deflate, and Iowa took advantage to great effect. And with short fields, all day long, etc. So I'm not suggesting that that's the exact same thing we're going to see, but that like our defense is not bulletproof. This is not, 2020.
Right. I mean, you're right. The other thing that I would say, like in the interest of like this, it goes again to everything we're talking about and like relativity. Purdue's giving up 38 points a game. And I know you're all saying, yeah, but look how horrific our offense is. You ain't wrong. But here's the other important thing. Purdue's giving up 50 more rush yards a game than every other team in the conference. Again, because this is an absolute dumpster fire of a football team, okay? Their rush defense is horrific. So even if you're like, we continue to in no way be dynamic on this read option approach and it still just gives to the back, well, you can still expect that Cam Porter's 3.6 to turn into like a 4.6 or a 5 point something per carry against Purdue because Purdue's awful at defending the run. And it could be that alone is a difference maker in terms of like allowing our offense to move the ball in this game. If you're not buying what I'm selling, I am not here to argue with you. I get it. Again, this is, as we joked on Twitter, our offense versus their defense is the stoppable force versus the movable object. Like this is like, it could be that this is just like a net cancellation the way things are going right now. But my guess would be that we ought to be able to hopefully get into the 20s in terms of scoring points against this football team simply by our ability to run the ball. Again, and this goes to said, to give our offensive line and be like, our offensive line is probably going to be able to move the point of attack on the ground against Purdue's defensive line. And that's going to make a difference in this game. So, again, like Purdue can be the cure for what ails you when things are really going wrong. This is a team that fired its offensive coordinator weeks ago. And, I mean, Ryan Walters is basically on a fired watch every day. The Purdue Nation is basically following this like by the second. And it could be that like he's fired. If we beat them, he may be fired the following Monday. So it's, again, like this is the way this conference is. And yeah, Purdue's a statistical anomaly. But after everything that we've talked about and all of like the seething that I have been doing, the fact of the matter is this is a very winnable football game. And if we win it, you can be looking past Ohio State and being like, well, now we got a shot at whatever Michigan is. And then we got a shot at whatever Illinois is. And theoretically, they're really unbelievably so, but crazy but true, could be postseason football in the cards for us.
Any specific thing you guys are looking at for Saturday?
Competence?
Growth? Growth, showing like something different.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'm looking for evidence of growth from the coaches, right? Evidence that we are not seeing the same mistakes repeating themselves, and evidence that they have, that they are, part of it's teaching Lausch and getting growth out of Lausch, but also part of it is just making him do what needs to be done, right? And being like it is on you as coaches to make this happen. And that's part of coaching. That's part of what everyone is grading you on is your ability to do this. And again, like I said, the fundamental thing that we are talking about here is not the most difficult thing on the agenda. It's not the calculus of the football world here. These are simple things that's more about just like drumming in and getting repetition on. So that's what I'm looking for, like better execution. But I also think that even if the execution doesn't improve by leaps and bounds and the balance doesn't improve by leaps and bounds, I think we'll still move the football just by virtue of Cam hammering forward, Hyman getting good yards, and the offensive line moving the pile.
Well, and they expect to have Kurtz back, and
good.
Some of the downfield passing. I mean, like what this offense looked like against Indiana and Maryland, is that. I mean, can we get back to that?
Yeah,
right.
And it's hard to fathom. I mean, Iowa and Wisconsin, their defenses are not what they've been in their heyday years. it's hard to fathom. I mean, Indiana's defense is better than both those defenses right now.
Yeah.
And it is hard to fathom what happened between the Maryland game and the Wisconsin game. Kurtz getting knocked out of the Wisconsin game and missing Iowa is like one of the few variables that kind of lines up. So you hope that helps open things up for us.
And Henning did play, but he was very much questionable going in. So like he was not 100%.
Yeah, hopefully he's better.
Porter's still coming back from his injury from earlier this season. Like he probably getting closer to 100%. But like at this point in the season, I mean, we're at Halloween basically. No one's completely healthy.
No one's completely healthy. But growth and some competence, and I mean, this is a game Northwestern should win, like full stop. Even though it's on the road, everything else like this, and if at the same time, like we're in a bit of a death spiral right now, so it's going to take some mettle, and it's going to take the coaches looking at each other in the eye and saying, "Yeah, no, we effed up. We can't do that anymore." And it's going to take some of the players looking at each other in the eye and say, "Yep, we effed up. We can't do that anymore." And if they can come together and put together a competent, solid, complementary performance, I think Northwestern can win this game.
Yeah. And again, like the one thing to drum it home again too, like you said, like Brown is a problem and he is mobile. This defense though, like again, like I said it last week, like we see you defense. We don't hold what happened in the second half of that football game against you. We know how well you're playing. We know how much growth the corners have put on, like how much like the secondary, and again, like a guy like Damon Walters, how much growth of exciting young players is happening on that defensive football team, and the strength that continues to be displayed on the defensive line. Like we know that those guys are going to go out and exert their will in Purdue, and that's going to be a huge benefit for us. It's a massive card to be able to play. And thank God we've got those guys.
If you or a loved one is seriously injured by someone else's negligence, hire Kent Simpson of the Simpson Law Group. After over a decade prosecuting murder cases in Chicago, Simpson opened his own firm focused on wrongful death and personal injury cases. He specializes in car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and other transportation accidents, as well as construction accidents, medical negligence, slip and falls, product liability, and more. Millions recovered for clients. No fee unless he wins. The Simpson Law Group. Compassion, empathy, and vigorous advocacy. Go to simpsonlawgroup.com or call 312-332-2107 for a free consultation, and go Cats. All right, let's whip around the rest of the conference, close the book on that, just kind of look back at last weekend. Friday night after the baseball game, which started ridiculously late.
Can I chime in briefly before you get started going game by game?
Please.
Unlike 2 weeks ago, the conference sobered up this past weekend.
Not as drunk. No.
Yeah. Things not really drunk at all. Things went pretty much as expected across the board.
So USC beats Rutgers 42-20. Rutgers tailspin continues. I mean, yeah, I don't know what to make of them.
And Bears fans who had a rough weekend, Rutgers couldn't take them a little bit closer to Lincoln Riley being the Bears offensive coordinator next season, and helping unlock Caleb Williams. We might still get there. Don't put that out of the realm of possibility. But Lincoln was able to keep the torches away for at least one more week.
Hey, Illinois.
Yeah.
You see what real football is?
Wow.
38-9. Oregon beats Illinois.
It was 35-3 at half.
Yeah.
And this
and Vegas thought this was going to happen too.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of people out there who are like, yeah, I'm not really buying that Illinois, 20 ranked Illinois is really gonna have a chance in this game. I hesitate to interpret that as Illinois sucks and is a horrible football team.
No,
I think they still got a lot going. They still got a lot going for them. But yeah, they're not on par with the upper echelon of the conference. And if anything, this should tell you a fair amount about Michigan, who has to host Oregon this weekend.
I know. Yeah. I feel like I've gotten used to the shorthand as the season's gone on of being like the Big Ten has 4 good teams and then whatever Illinois is. So I guess that puts Illinois sort of in the 5 spot, I guess. But then you look at a game like this and you're like, no, I don't know. It could be that they are just in the wash with your Iowas and your Wisconsins and everybody else.
Penn State, Drew Aller goes down. Bo Pribula comes in, and Penn State knocks off Wisconsin 28-13.
All the headlines are something to the effect of, oh, Pribula comes in and, Penn State prevails. Not a lot of Drew Eller was not playing particularly well in this game. There's a little bit of commentary happening.
There's some real Ewing theory potential here for Penn State. I would not rule out addition by subtraction with everything else that team has.
Yeah.
Nebraska gave Ohio State all they could handle. I mean, 21-17, Ohio State comes back to win, but that was actually a really entertaining game.
Mea culpa. This I thought Ohio State would absolutely mop the floor. Nebraska, certainly got up for this game. One important caveat is that Ohio State is now down to their third string left tackle. They have a lot of problems on their offensive line right now. I don't think even that's even the only one. So, but let's be before the year, and Will Howard was 13 of 16 for 221 yards and 3 TDs in this game, but their offense is not. It's not as consistent and as effective as you would hope or expect it to be given the pedigree. And I did hear one interesting call out, after Indiana absolutely carpet bombed Nebraska through the air, Ohio State chose to basically run on them incessantly behind a busted offensive line. And whether that's just hey, let's just get through this at home and move on to Penn State or what. But Nebraska had a legit shot, and there's a lot of commentary that maybe they were playing 11 on 14.
The other main takeaway from this game is the officiating was horrific.
That's what I mean by playing. I guess 11 on 14 is a lot more than 3 in refs in college football, isn't it? 11 on 18? Is that what it was?
At the end of the first half and at the end of the game, there were calls that were just absolutely atrocious. I don't know, and it affected both teams. It affected Nebraska more, but it was brutal still.
Indiana keeps it going. 31-17 over Washington. Just
crown their asses, Sammy.
Yeah, such an awesome season for Indiana.
For me, probably seriously. the single biggest shot of the weekend, if not one of the season, was that pick six for Indiana, where they zoomed out and showed the whole stadium as he was running into the end zone. It was phenomenal. I mean, this
great camera work
is
too. That was really well done.
This is the zenith of Indiana football, maybe ever. Right now, this is their magic time. I'm good on them. The Signetti thing is real.
First time they've been 8-0 since the 60s. Now they have to go to Michigan State, who's looked a fair bit better, but they should significantly be able to outplay Michigan State next week, and then they got Michigan and Ohio State back to back, and that's when things get really interesting. This team is spectacular.
Hope they can get Rourke back, yeah.
Which I think I read somewhere today that they're hoping he's back this week.
Yeah, all accounts are he'll be back. If not this week, next.
No, that's awesome.
Maryland at Minnesota. Minnesota 48-23 over Maryland.
Are the Gophers good?
They
seem to be coming into their own.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because we talked at the beginning of the season, and of course we are familiar with the same thing ourselves, but I remember being that UNC game, and we were like, how the hell did Minnesota lose this game? It's gonna sting later on, and man, they'd be 6-2 right now with that one. And you're right, they seem to be able to throw and they seem to be able to run.
God, 7-1 if they got a little bit more luck against Michigan.
Yeah.
I mean, they still had to score after that onside kick, but
they did. But speaking of Michigan, they beat Michigan State 24-17.
Yeah, I mean, this Michigan seemed to kind of not get right because they're still so limited, but they should be able to do this too. This is what we expected, that they would beat the teams on their schedule, not spectacularly, but just grind teams down and kind of take them apart systematically. They got some guys back on their defense. It's a little bit healthier now than it's been the last couple of weeks. But interestingly, Davis Warren appears to be the guy going forward. So it's not Tuttle, it's not Orgy.
Well, actually, I don't know if you guys saw, like right before we hit record, Tuttle retired. A medical retired.
Did he really? Oh,
yeah, concussions.
That. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there's no third option there for now. It's just those two guys. It's just Orgy and Warren. But yeah, Warren seems to be the number one guy.
That sucks for Tuttle. I mean, you hate to you hate to see that. Like, I mean, damn.
Yeah, I know. It does. It stinks, and it goes around. In terms of on the other side for Michigan State, for Childs, I hadn't actually seen him play a ton of football prior to this game, and in my head, I kind of had like a picture of like an Anthony Richardson type guy, and that's basically what I saw. He's a really athletic dude with a cannon for an arm and the ability to make major plays and also the ability to make throws that you're like, man, you should not have thrown that ball. But again, like, that's a guy who runs hot and cold. And to your point about Indiana, if you came out and you're like, yeah, Aiden Childs came out and threw for 370 yards and they won by like a whisker, I'd be like, yeah, sure, I can see that happening.
Any other games from around the country that kind of jumped out at you? I mean, how good is Pitt? Like, I mean, yeah, they're 7-0. Are they like for real?
Yeah, their quarterback's legit. They're an exciting team. I mean, we'll find out because they are going to play SMU this weekend. They're going to play Clemson in 2 weeks. They got Louisville after that, and then presumably if they make their way through a lot of that, they'd play Miami in the ACC title game. But yeah, we'll see.
Well, they play Miami and the officials in the ACC title game.
Oh, Holstein might not play against SMU this weekend. That'd be brutal.
Oh, SMU is like frisky.
Yeah, SMU's really good.
They're good.
Well, and Eli Holstein transferred to Pitt. I'm forgetting where he transferred from, but he transferred to Pitt and he's been a revelation for them. I mean, he's a huge he's the thing that makes them go. And I'm trying to quickly pull this up where he came from, and I don't have it, but yeah, he has brought a new level to their squad. That's for sure.
I'll highlight in terms of games from around the country. I'll talk about the academically elite private school from the major college football conference, who we know they've already beaten Alabama this year, and they gave Texas a run for their money. Vandy couldn't quite get there, but they got within 3. They lost 27-24. One of the things that I want to bring up about this, too, is obviously, like everyone knows at this point, that Diego Pavia is the engine, the quarterback. He's what makes Vanderbilt go. A big thing you need to know is that guy runs the ball 15 to 20 times every game. And it is a huge piece of everything that they do, and it's a huge pain in the ass for other teams to have to deal with. And it's their thing, combined with him just that and his just absolutely ridiculous swagger and belief that he is going to win every football game that he plays in. It's a huge weapon for them, and it's kind of enabling everything for them.
Chris Gini, fast forward like 30 seconds here.
Right.
Wow, Texas A&M, huh?
Yeah, this is one of those things too, where like Texas A&M fans are like, "We're the best team in the SEC," and everyone else in the SEC is like, "No, you're not. This is not for real." So I don't know. Like, I guess we'll. I'm very curious. That is it's just wild. I think like we've gotten used to Alabama. You just get used to Alabama being such a constant and Georgia being such a constant, that then it suddenly kind of becomes, all right, so like I guess this conference is a little bit up for grabs now, and I don't exactly know who's stepping into this power vacuum, and I kind of still feel like we don't know.
Let's see what else really.
You mentioned Alabama. I'm going to go back real quick. Eli Holstein transferred to Pitt from Alabama.
Oh, okay.
Never played at Alabama, but was a redshirt there, transferred to Pitt, and is tearing it up as a true freshman.
The other one we mentioned last week that Navy was about to finally meet reality when they played Notre Dame, and that's exactly what happened. It's like, Navy, we love you, love that triple option. It's so great to see a Service Academy ranked, but yeah, that one was not close.
Can we throw a few flowers to Boulder? Colorado is bowl eligible for the first time in like 12 years.
Hey, for all the crap that Dion has taken, and you may not agree with his methods, but that team's pretty good this year. I mean, a lot of folks thought that they were just gonna fall off a cliff after all the defensive problems last year, the offensive line problems last year, right? They started really hot and then just disappeared. And a lot of folks thought that the same thing was going to happen this year, and it's not been the case.
Yeah, beaten longtime conference foe Cincinnati.
It's funny. I'm just like looking here too. Their schedule is cake, because Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State are all really bad this year, and they get all three of those teams still, and then a Texas Tech team that's 3-2, 5-3 overall right now. But I mean, like 10 wins.
Texas Tech, a Mike Bajakian coached Utah team.
That's right. I forget. Yeah. Never mind. Utah's turning it all around.
I have to do this.
Please.
There was somebody that decided to tweet about. And granted, our offensive performance was horrible on Saturday. That is not lost on me. But somebody was like, Mike Bajakian, Utah got 306 yards and scored 2 touchdowns, and I'm like, that's not good, folks. That's it's not good. And I whatever. I hope the guy does well at Utah, unless we happen to see them again. And just like I hope Brandon Sullivan does well with Iowa, except when it potentially impacts us. But both those guys' performance on Saturday looked pretty much what we had seen in the past.
Turning our attention to this weekend's games, we've got a big one right off the top, 11 a.m. on Fox. Penn State, Ohio State.
Yeah, this is, I mean, again, it's an awesome game. It's awesome that it's in Penn State. I think if you would have asked us at the beginning of the season, though, our feeling would be that this is where the Drew Aller chickens come home to roost. And if he's banged up, that only makes me feel even more about that. And again, we talked about addition by subtraction, but you don't want your first starting football game if you're a quarterback to be against Ohio State. Like, I think this all lines up really well for the Buckeyes. But with that said, like, Penn State's awesome everywhere other than quarterback. So I don't know. This is the hump that they just can't get over.
Do we know Aller's out?
No, I don't think we do.
Don't. I don't think we do.
So John, I'm gonna contend with you on that.
Okay.
So if Penn State's awesome everywhere, they beat West Virginia by 22. They beat Bowling Green by 7. They mopped Kent State. They beat Illinois by 14. They beat UCLA by 16. They beat USC by 3. Wisconsin by 15. And now they're going to play Ohio State.
Yeah.
Ohio State has gone toe-to-toe with Oregon, has survived a letdown clunker against Nebraska. Like, I mean, maybe I'm giving too much credit to the Oregon game and not enough credit to playing at USC, but like the Penn State's schedule looks a lot less intimidating than we thought coming into the year, and I don't think they've really been tested. And I think Will
Howard's awesome. I have so much more faith in Ohio State's ability on offense in this game.
I think Ohio State has the better offense and the better defense, and I think.
Oh, that's a great point. Like, Penn State's awesome on defense, but not compared to Ohio State. Yeah. Ain't no one as good as that D. They're awesome.
And the way you beat Ohio State, and Nebraska did this a little bit, but like you got to be able to attack deep. Penn State doesn't have the receivers nor the quarterback to throw deep balls against Ohio State and have much success. So unless they get one of those games where just everything goes right for them and everything goes wrong for Ohio State, I think the outcome of this is pretty clear.
Also at 11 o'clock, Minnesota at Illinois. Minnesota, a 3-point road favorite.
Yeah,
Really?
that seems exactly right too. Like I would favor them in this game. They seem to be doing a lot of things right now.
Illinois
again,
still ranked number 24.
I know that's the thing. Like these two teams, I don't see a distinction between these two teams. Like I put them at about the same level with one another, and yet Illinois has, by hook or by crook, been hanging on to this ranking all season long. It probably ends this week.
Man, it's so weird. I don't.
What are you talking yourself out of?
So Minnesota lost 31-14 to Iowa. They lost to Michigan. They've gotten better the last 3 weeks and beaten the California schools, including USC, who had to travel, which, pretty much almost everyone has beaten them when they have to travel. And then threw all over the barn against Maryland, which we also did. Illinois beat Michigan, only lost by 14 to Penn State, beat Nebraska. On the road.
I mean, to be fair,
I'm stunned Minnesota's a 3-point favorite, unless there's some injury concerns that I'm not aware of.
I don't know. I think this is a good matchup. Like, I think this is going to be a good game. I'm very curious to see what both of these teams look like in this game.
ESPN Matchup Predictor has it almost 50-50.
Yeah.
And given it's at Illinois, again, I am stunned Minnesota's a 3-point favorite.
Yeah.
This is not a great matchup for Minnesota unless I'm wrong. Like, hasn't Illinois' run defense been okay? Like, surprisingly okay?
Up and down. It comes and it goes.
All right. Well, then maybe. Yeah. Then maybe. I mean, it's not like Memorial Stadium is a really hard place to play, but like...
No. Again, I think that's just going to be a good game. Like,
wow.
I think it's probably those are two well-matched teams.
PJ versus Brett is some old school Big Ten shit.
Oh yeah.
You know what I don't think is going to be a good game.
The 2:30 game on CBS, Oregon at Michigan. Yeah. Oregon, a 14.5-point road favorite in the Big House.
I think this will be a good game.
You do.
I mean,
you think Michigan's going to be able to move the ball?
We've left Michigan for dead in a home game against tough teams, perceived tough teams coming in. Twice now.
But this is Oregon.
I know it is.
You saw what Texas did when they went in there.
Well, that's a good point. I forgot about Texas. That's a good point.
This Oregon team is awesome.
Oh no, I know they're awesome.
Michigan.
I made the case for them beating Ohio State to an Ohio State guy before the season.
How about this, guys? They just beat the brakes off an Illinois team that handled this Michigan team.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I am looking at this game exactly the way, in the opposite way that I looked at Nebraska Ohio State last week. It's a game that I think Michigan is going to have circled, and there's a pride factor and everything else. Oregon has never played at the Big House. They're traveling. I don't know if it will be cold or not. Not that they can't play in cold
58
weather.
degrees and rain is what the current accurate forecast shows.
I just think Michigan's defense will do more than you would expect them to be able to do. And I think Oregon probably wins. I think they probably win comfortably, but I think this is going to be a good game.
Interesting. Oregon's defense is awesome, and Michigan's offense is not good. This is, one of the worst Michigan offenses we've seen. Yeah. And this is that whole thing of running the ball. And of course, this is the thing. This is where Michigan starts this stretch. Michigan's going to have to play Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State in their last 4 games. So it starts now.
Oregon after this, Oregon gets Maryland at Wisconsin and then Washington.
Oh my!
Oregon's got a little better.
I guess the other, the counterpoint is that Oregon mopped the floor with Illinois, and Illinois beat Michigan handily.
That's what I'm saying.
But road games in this conference have been a thing.
Yeah, no, it's true.
And especially when somebody hasn't played somewhere frequently or very often, right?
Yeah, You're coming way east in very mediocre weather to play in the big house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be rocking.
No, I'm not gonna give you the weather aspect of it. You're telling me it doesn't rain in Oregon? Come on.
No,
sure it does,
right.
but like Dylan Gabriel just got there. He hasn't had to play in the rain yet, has he?
Yeah.
Don't rain in Oklahoma.
No, that's true.
That's right.
Also, 2:30 p.m. on Peacock. Sorry, Indiana fans, you got to shell out for the Peacock app.
Oh, that's horseshit.
Yeah,
Peacock, really?
If I was a betting person, which I am 100% not, this Indiana -8 is a joke to me. I'm like, I don't care about this Michigan State Magic. If Rourke's playing in this game, first of all, if it's confirmed Rourke starts, this line's going to jump. But if I was a gambling person, I would take the chances right now and just be like, I want that -8.
I might take that chance regardless of Rourke starting or not. And it's because Kurt Signiti has shown us 8 weeks in a row.
Zero fucks.
His desire is to score 1 million points every single game. At halftime against Washington, like Indiana's first big test of the year, at halftime, they interview him and he's irate. He is pissed. His team has just kicked a field goal to go up 17-7. They've been basically controlling this game for a half. Every other Big Ten coach I have ever known at Northwestern would have been thrilled with this outcome. And Kurt Signiti is like, he literally said, well, the offense isn't really doing their part, isn't holding up their part of the bargain, are they? When asked about how his defense was doing, he was angry about a 10-point lead at half over Washington in his team's first test on national TV. And holy shit, like this guy is out for everyone's blood.
You want another X factor too? Indiana's going to travel like crazy.
Football
game.
Oh yeah, big time.
It's not going to be a home field advantage for Michigan State at all, and I think it all just matches up well for the Hoosiers.
I cannot believe this game's on Peacock and UCLA Nebraska is on BTN. That is some laundry-driven horse crap.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's smart for Peacock.
Yeah. UCLA,
they're going to get a bunch of new, or at least a bunch of new subs, or the 7-day free trial.
I would shout, put Indiana on broadcast television, you cowards, but they did have game day and
they
had game day,
big noon Saturday 2 weeks in a row. So
yeah, I love that. It's another week and another week of UCLA taking an absolute kick to the nuts. This week it's flying out to Lincoln, Nebraska.
UCLA at Nebraska. Nebraska's 6.5-point home favorite. Like you said, the game's on Big Ten Network.
Yeah. I mean, like, again, Nebraska, like, if you like the effort that they gave to that Ohio State team, I mean, they're way better than UCLA. But man, is this team inconsistent. And like, I feel like their record probably ought to be better than it is right now, but there's still a lot of meat on the bone for them. And I don't know, 6.5 seems low to me. Like, they ought to be able to handle this team, especially with UCLA, yet another brutal travel schedule.
Here's something wild. Wisconsin at Iowa. Iowa 3-point home favorite. 6:30 on NBC. The over/under is 40.5, the same as UCLA Nebraska.
That's surprising, and here's why. Because Iowa has scored 40, 19, 38, 31, only 7 against Ohio State, 40, 20, and 40 points in their games. And
Brian Ferentz is like, sitting in the corner, like in the fetal position, just sort of rocking back and forth. Why are there so many points? Why are there so many points?
So this game's interesting for a number of reasons. So first and foremost, Cade McNamara is not on the depth chart that Iowa has released this week. Brendan Sullivan is the starting quarterback for Iowa. Wisconsin did not look good against Penn State. Locked through a pick six. They just did not look good. And an interesting thing we didn't talk about before. Iowa beat Northwestern 40-14 this past week. They beat Washington 40-16 3 weeks ago. They are quite exceptional at home, and I these two teams feel yes to everything we said earlier about like neither one of these is like a great football team. Iowa feels a order of magnitude stronger than Wisconsin, and that's from having seen the two of them the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, one of these mediocre teams is getting bowl eligible this week, and if mediocre and getting bowl eligible doesn't scream Iowa, I don't know what does. So like I feel like I'm going to give the edge to the Hawkeyes on this one.
Mediocre is probably a strong term. I would go, these teams are decent, okay to decent.
Mediocre.
Remember, we got Salty John tonight.
I know. Oh, I know. That comment was designed to get a reaction.
And finally, also 6:30 on Big Ten Network, USC at Washington. USC a 2.5-point road favorite. I mean, it's not like they don't know how to go to Seattle. Like this is a long-time Pac-12 matchup.
I know this is funny. It's like, yeah.
The Big Ten beat writers did not have USC at 2-4 and Washington at 2-3 meeting up in this game. I think both teams were expected to be like one loss each and destroying the Big Ten now that they've joined the conference. And it's kind of awesome that they've been pulled down in the muck. I have no idea who's going to win this game. These two teams are both an enigma.
It's going to be a lot of pass yards. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. These two teams are both an enigma to me.
Yeah.
And a lot of pass yards is probably a good way to couch it.
I can sure tell you which coach needs the win more, though. That would be Lincoln Riley.
Well,
Lincoln Riley probably, he kind of needs to be like winning out here. Like he's hanging by a thread.
Any other games nationally that kind of catching your eye? Full disclosure, it's been a week for me. I haven't really had a chance to take a look at this upcoming week's.
Duke's at Miami, and I mean, ACC's probably going to make a business decision if that game comes down to it, and ensure that Miami continues to be undefeated. But Duke's 6-2. They lost by 1 to SMU. The Pitt SMU game we mentioned earlier.
Yep. There's actually, I mean, overall, right? There doesn't seem to be too much meat on the bone this week.
No, not a lot of
outside
craziness.
of it.
But that's when everything always goes tits up, right?
I was gonna say,
Florida, Georgia,
Texas A&M's dying to hork up that South Carolina game.
Yeah, but Texas is off, Alabama's off. You got Florida, Georgia, right?
Florida, Georgia, yeah.
A&M coming off the big win against LSU, going to South Carolina feels like a giant trap.
Oh yeah, they're only 2.5-point favorites too. Yeah. So clearly that's an expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah. But aside from that, not too much else.
Yeah. What the Pitt SMU? That's on ACC Network.
Yeah.
Damn.
I would. Baby, don't be so mean. Oh, Notre Dame is off this week too. Wow, there's a lot of big teams off this week.
Normally
A&M South Carolina is the ABC game.
No, I said Notre Dame.
No, I know, but A&M South Carolina is the 6:30 ABC
gotcha.
game.
The primetime game. Yep.
Yeah.
Normally we only say this with a bye week, but I would say, because I imagine the vast majority of you are not traveling to the Purdue game, watch the Purdue game at 11 a.m. and then go get some apple picking in right after that. Get your Halloween shopping in. Watch our game.
Well, at that point, Halloween's going to be done.
Oh yeah, that's true. Right. So go before Spirit
go
Halloween
order your turkey.
Shop. Yeah,
go order your turkey. Get those Thanksgiving preps started. Right. Menu plan.
Exactly. Go take in the air. Like I said, we should mention at this point, we are not doing a watch party at Beer Miscuous this week. We just found out that kind of, it's not like a sour grapes kind of situation that the way things are going. We just found out that a bunch of people that normally come to that will not be going. And given that and everything else, we're just going to take a week off. But, there will be more gatherings at Beer Miscuous later this season for sure, but just not this week. But again, we'll all be watching TV from the comfort of our own homes. And then again, hopefully the weather holds up, and that game, when it's done, we can go out and enjoy the weather.
Anything else to mention before we get out of here? I know off the top we mentioned about basketball. Men's basketball announced their 3 captains. No surprise. Matt Nicholson Ty Berry and Brooks Barnheiser. Like I say, no surprise there.
Yep. I think we're all very aware, too, that, like, we're all aware that that we haven't talked about hoops. And obviously there's so much to talk about hoops, and this always happens every year when, like, hoops crashes into football season like this. We obviously haven't talked about this titanic recruiting class that we have lined up. We're going to get into all of that. Obviously, there's going to be a period where we're going to pivot, and then it's just going to be hoops, all the time. Yeah. So that will be coming on the horizon.
Well, just a reminder, our first hoops ticket giveaway. Take a picture of yourself at the field hockey game on the 1st. Get the scoreboard in the background. Send it to us by any of the different means that we are available online, and we will pull a drawing for. Basically, whoever wins, you get your pick of the non-conference games in November when you're available. So, like I said, go cheer on our field hockey team to get an undefeated season, and send us a pick, and we'll hook you up with some basketball tickets, or put you in a drawing to hook you up with some basketball tickets.
Well, on that note, we'll go ahead and leave it there for tonight. Head to our website, westlawpirates.com, where you can leave comments and questions. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, at Westlaw Pirates, and you can always email the show, westlawpirates@gmail.com. Tune in next time as we give our visceral and statistical views on Northwestern athletics. Look for us in the West Lot of... Where are we located? I guess West Lot of Wrigley Field?
The Cubby Bear?
The Cubby Bear, yeah. Look for us in the Cubby Bear, flying the red pirate flag, because we give no quarter, especially the fourth. For John Lacombe and Eric Scousby, I'm Sam Walter. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.